Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Steve here from Life, Liberty, and Adventures. In one of my previous videos, I did about the Bergara B14R, a little unboxing video, and talked about the specs, and I did a little bore scope video for it. Today's video is going to be about setting it up with a rifle scope and rings and a scope base, and I'm also going to change out the sling swivel studs in the front of the stock for a bipod Picatinny rail. So give me a minute and I'll be right back. Okay folks, so we are back once again at the tactical coffee table because it's still too cold in my garage to do this work comfortably. First thing I did is I just wanted to let you know in the previous video about the Bergara HMR stocks and how they have paint overspray on the aluminum pillars in the stocks. I just went ahead off camera and used a little bit of acetone and a little bit of really fine sandpaper and just got all the paint off of those pillars. You can see there, it's shiny aluminum there. So I've done that, and I've also taken liberty off camera to spray brake cleaner in the scope base mounting holes in the action. So I've done that off camera, so that's ready to go. I've also cleaned all the screws for the scope base. Those are all clean and ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is, like I mentioned in my previous video, I'm going to put a Picatinny bipod rail on the front because I hate these sling swivel studs. And I've also already cut the screws to length. I believe these are 1032 button head cap screws. The longer one is about 1 1/16 thread length, and the shorter one is about 13/16 thread length. When you put these in, you don't want the screw threads to protrude through here and touch the barrel. So I've already done that and made sure they were the right length. So just take some type of pin punch or something and just put it in the sling swivel stud hole, and you can unthread them. There's threads already in the aluminum backbone. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reuse these washers that Bergara has underneath the stud, and I'm going to put those between the rail, because you can see there's a indent or a counterbore in the stock itself. This is the Atlas or AccuShot BT17 model, because the spacing on the screws is 2.5 inches, and this covers that spacing. So you're going to set it up like so, put the washers in. Where's the other one? There it is. Then you're going to take the screws, this scope rail or Picatinny rail from Atlas Bipods also has a QD cup mounting point in the rear section of it, so you want that towards the rear of the stock. So when you're tightening these down, you want to push forward on that to help to counteract any movement from recoil. And if I got these lengths correct, yeah, they don't protrude into the barrel channel at all. So I'm going to go ahead and snug those down. You don't need to go super tight, you just need to go snug. Again, it's a very small screw, don't worry about it. Then what you can do is put those aside, you don't need those anymore. You can take your bipod You mount that on there. There you go. Then you have that set. Again, those screws do not protrude in the barrel channel. That's perfect length. And then you can take your barreled action. Oh, before I put this in, if you want to adjust the trigger pull weight on your trigger, the screw here in the front, you just turn that in to increase the pull weight or out. Bergara says in their manual that the trigger pull weight can be adjusted from 2.8 pounds up to 4.4 pounds. And it's interesting because when I measured it, it was already below the 2.8. It was around 2 to 2 3/8 pounds that I measured it. So it's interesting. So, but I'm going to be changing that out to something else. It's not that size. I guess I already have that out. There we go. Whoops. It's probably easier if I just do this upside down. Well, let me go ahead and do that. Back these out just a wee bit, just so it's loose a little bit. And I always stand it up on its end. I move the action around a little bit. Give it a couple bumps. Make sure it's down. The recoil lug is against the abutment. Snuggle them up a little bit. I'm gonna go grab my torque wrench. Be right back. All right, I got my torque wrench, and we're gonna go and torque those action screws to 55 inch-pounds. I'm gonna go up about halfway before I torque them. All right, that's done. One other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the sling swivel stud on the back of the stock because I hate these sling swivel studs, and I'm not ever really going to be using those studs to carry it by sling. So that is no use to me, and when I shoot this off of a rear bag, it's going to get in the way. So off it goes. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mount the scope base. And what I purchased was the Seekins Precision scope base for Remington 700 short action in the 30 MOA with number 6 screws. Because the Bergara B14s, whether it's the B14R or the B14s, all of them have the 6x48 screws that the standard Remington 700 has. And I wanted a little bit more minute of angle, so I went with a 30 MOA base. So, as you can see, the Seekins Precision 700 short action 30 MOA base with number 6 screws has a recoil lug, not that you need it on this 22, but it helps to locate the base properly on the front. And also of note is that they provide different screw lengths. Seekins does. So the very front action screw, the thread hole goes into, I'm not sure if you can see it. It's kind of tough to see it down there, but the threads of the barrel actually are in this area. So you do not want a really long screw in that position. So I've already checked, and this other length that's in here, they provide 2 of those. As you can see, there's 2 that same length. They go in the front, but they provide an alternate, which is this little shorty, if you need it, if your screw threads for the barrel protrude in there. So I've already checked, and I need this little tiny little guy. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. And the 2 long ones go in the back. Where's the other one? There it is. All right. So I'm going to get... Where's my adapter for that? All right, be right back. Okay, so you're going to need a Torx driver. This is a T15 size. So the way I do this is I run these down till they're touching, and then I back them out maybe a quarter turn. I want to get them all started in their threads before I do anything, any torquing or Loctite or anything. Back him out. I want that scope base to move slightly while I'm doing this. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my ratchet. Because it has a recoil lug, I'm going to push forward on that, and I'm going to start snugging up the screws. I'm going to do the same thing on a non-22 action. Just torque it front, or push it front to counteract recoil. Okay, so Seekins, let's see, they do not provide torque specs on the package, but let me jump online and I'll go and get that for you. Okay, so I looked up the scope base screw torque from Seekins, and it is 15 inch-pounds. So what I'm going to do is take out each of them individually. And apply just a dab of Loctite, just blue, low strength Loctite. One pro tip is when you're installing a screw that has very fine threads, you want to be sure you get that started correctly. So what you can do is turn it counterclockwise if it's a right hand screw until you feel the thread jump. And what that does is it's telling you that it's started over on its threads. So 15 inch-pounds. There we go. So we'll do one of these at a time. Doesn't matter if you start front or back, but just so that you get them all. Little dab will do ya. The reason you want to make sure you spray all these with screws and the threads with brake cleaners, you don't want any oils on them so the Loctite is able to cure properly and actually do its job. If there is oil on this stuff from the factories, the screws and the action, so you want to make sure you clean those oils off so the thread locker, the Loctite, actually works. This one's gonna be a bugger, isn't it? There we go. Here, I'll demonstrate that. Did you hear that click? That told me that the threads were backed off of one itself, and I can go and advance it to tighten it. All right, 15 inch-pounds. All right, we'll just go back and check all of them once more. They're at least 15. Okay, now I'm going to cycle the bolt and make sure it still functions right. Now I still have that spent piece of brass in there, and that just came out. All right, that works out just fine. See if I can get that back in there. I'm not going to worry about that right now. We'll worry about that later. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go get the rings. I'm going to get a rear bag to set this on so I can kind of level the whole rifle out here on the table. All right, so I'm back at the tactical coffee table, and I've got a rear bag to use. And also, this is a digital protractor, or a digital level. It is super accurate. It's probably more than you need to be for this operation, but in this direction I don't have to be super level, but I want it to be fairly close, so we can shake that down a little more. Close enough. I'll go get the rings and we'll start putting the scope on. Okay, so what I'm using are the Vortex Optics Precision Matched rings. These are made by Seekins Precision, so they are really good quality. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the caps off. And you need a T25 Torx bit adapter for the cap screws. Once I get these apart, then we will start leveling the rifle. I'm going to keep these caps with the bottoms. You don't need to take these out, you just need to loosen them a good bit so you can get them over the rail. You can choose to Loctite these screws if you want, but I have never done that, and I have never had an issue. But what I'm going to do is I always put it with the screws on the opposite side of the ejection port. and I push forward so it contacts the recoil surface of the pick rail. And I just snug them for now. Take off the screws on the other ring. I'm just going to set them in there for the time being. I'm going to do a mock-up test on this and test it out first before I tighten everything down. Like I did with the other screws and the other parts, I've already degreased everything, so I don't need to do that anymore. I'm not going to Loctite it anyway, but just thought I'd mention that. Alright, now that we're in there, get the level out. We'll put that in there. I don't know if you can see that number on the display. But what I'm looking for is to get under 1/10 of a degree. Doesn't matter to me either way. Okay, I'm just going to take that off for the time being. I'm going to set the scope in. This is a Vortex Optics Strike Eagle 5-25 by 56. Has 34mm tubes, or tube. And it is first focal plane and the MRED reticle. Just going to set that up there like so. Make sure there's no like lint or anything inside here. I'm just gonna snug these down a bit, just get them started. Also, with this style of ring, you never want the two sides to touch, so you always want to have a small gap in there. So, and I try to make the gaps as even as possible. All right. So with this particular scope, the level that I have has an indented base on it, and it does not work with this turret style. So I'm going to get another tool and I'll show you what I use. On a scope like this with a very small turret where my digital protractor doesn't really work that well, is I use a precision bubble level. So what I'm concerned about with this is not this direction. I want this direction, so the bubble I want to be centered over that line. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little spinning here. Of the scope body. As you tighten these down, it'll actually pull the scope in one direction or the other. I don't know if you can see that, but that is darn close. Close enough for government work. And just so you know, Vortex recommends 18 to 20 inch-pounds for the ring cap screws, and for the scope ring base screws, those are 55 inch-pounds from Seekins. Alright, well, I'm just going to torque these up, 18 to 20 on the top. I'm going to go crisscross pattern, and then I'll torque the other ones. First. Okay. And that's as close as we're going to be able to get it. All right, I'm just going to spin this around. Move that out of the way. These are the same T25, and these get 55 inch-pounds. Just going to torque them incrementally, not all the way up to 55 right away. All right, there you have it. One last thing I'm going to do is check the bolt through. See that my throw lever doesn't contact that, and it's clear of all the stuff there. So I'm also going to take out probably one, maybe two spacers off the back, and that should give me the proper eye relief, and we should be done, ready to go shoot. Brought my trusty kitchen scale over, and I'm going to weigh the Bergara B14R in this configuration, and I will remove the bipod, and we'll just weigh the rifle itself. The magazine is empty, and I already took out two spacers off the back end, and it weighs 11 pounds, 14.1 ounces. £11, 14 ounces. So it's got some nice weight to it. Hopefully it balances well. Well, folks, there you have it. It's ready to go. I'm really happy with how this turned out. So let me know in the comments what you think. If you do something differently, there's many ways to do this. This is just my preferred method of mounting a scope and leveling everything out. But it's worked for me for a lot of different rifles. So leave a comment below, like, share, and subscribe, and I appreciate you watching. Have a great day. See you on the next one.